was a place for us somewhere.
Not enough boys our age are educated about it and informed about what is going to happen and is their voice going to be okay and what are the right and wrong things to be doing during that period where their voice is changing.
Wait for us somewhere.
But because I was singing in the cathedral, there was a very clear deadline as to when my term as a chorister was going to end, and so that very much dictated when officially I was no longer going to be singing treble.
The voice does start to change, and you should stop singing treble before you can stop singing treble.
Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we are joined by two new guests. We are here with Robbie and Max. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Robbie. I've been a chorister at Carlisle Cathedral Choir for many years now, and I'm 18, so I'm kind of 4 years on from when my voice broke.
You said
Changed.
Changed. You just in time.
Hello, I'm Max. I'm approximately 6 or 7 years on from when my voice started to change. I'm no longer singing that much, but I did a lot of it when I was younger.
When did you guys start to notice that your voice was changing?
For me, it was quite a prolonged period of time.
Yeah.
I suppose my voice changed maybe 6 months into me being 14, and so but I felt like it was coming from about the time when I was maybe 13 3/4, but it was very gradual and it wasn't sudden at all, but because I was singing in the cathedral, there was a very clear deadline as to when my term as a chorister was going to end, and so that very much dictated when officially I was no longer going to be singing treble.
Absolutely. That is so often the case with choristers, that it's not a physical vocal event, it's a logistical, administrative event. Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Max?
Well, it's quite the opposite for me because, to answer your question, my voice... I noticed that my voice started to change when Martin told me that my voice started to change. It was a very different experience because the choir I was at the time, Martin effectively told me, you have to stop singing treble now. Which, admittedly, while very forward, was the right thing to do because the voice does start to change and you should stop singing treble before you can stop singing treble.
Now, the thing is, voices change over quite a long time. So, if you listen to your earliest recordings, your first album,
Yeah.
the Decca album, do you think you sound the same on that as you do on your recently released album?
No, definitely not. In my first album, the timbre is the correct term. It sounds very sweet and innocent and quite high pitched. Even though I was singing the same notes in my new album, the sound of it is a lot more mature and stronger, and not as like bell-like, but still sounded really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and they do say that boy's treble voice is at its best just before he loses it. Yeah, but Cormac, you used the word timbre, and you're absolutely right, because part of the voice change is a change in timbre. It's not just pitch.
Yeah.
Robbie, you're now... What part do you sing now? Tell us about how you sing now.
I sing tenor now, but when my voice first changed, other than a very, very brief week of doing tenor at Moorland Choristers Camp, I was singing bass for about half a year, which was just kind of where my voice sat comfortably. My voice wasn't ready to sing really anything above an E. While I couldn't reach the lower notes in a bass part, I could kind of still sing the rest of it fairly comfortably. But then my voice kind of naturally just shifted up, and I lost more and more lower notes, and I think I also started enjoying the higher notes more, which was really the tell that I was sort of ready to start singing tenor, because it's one thing to sing high notes, but then it's another thing to feel comfortable doing them, and I think that's quite an important distinction to make.
Yeah, and very interesting, because you're saying your voice is going up, not down.
Yeah, and I think it's also partly what you're singing the most of, because, this Christmas especially, we've been a bit low on basses, and so I've had to fill in a couple of bass parts, and even from a evening of singing bass, my voice feels completely worn out, just because it's so...
So it's happier higher up.
It's just happier higher up. And so now I feel like my voice is both higher and lower than it was when it first changed. I can sing more low notes, but it's just more comfortable in that higher.
Cormac, I remember the first time you struck a tenor C. Do you?
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
It was, I think it was at home, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, and I was very, very happy that I managed to reach a tenor C.
You were?
Yeah.
You were so happy you phoned me up.
Yeah.
I remember it well.
I think I can now get about an A flat, or maybe a G on a good day.
Yeah. So it's interesting that Robbie's voice has gone up. What do you think is going to happen? Is your voice going to go up, down, or stay the same?
I'm not sure. I think that it might move more to a tenor baritones type range, rather than, I think at the moment it's more of like a bass baritone, or just baritone. It's not really. It's not my range is about from a A flat comfortably or an A to about D, tenor D. So that's about an octave and a bit.
So do you think he's going to go up a bit?
I'd like to think so. I think it might. I hope it will. And I don't really want to lose any of the lower notes, though. Yeah.
Well, good news for you on that score, because Max's voice went up. It was at its lowest when he was 14, going 15. And what's your voice part now, Max?
So I sing whatever I'm told to.
Well told.
Yeah. In the only choir I'm in at the moment is the Huddersfield Choral Society, and I sing bass 1 in that, but that transitions to tenor 2 or bass 2, whichever part needs a bit of extra oomph. So I've got a fairly comfortable wide range. It's interesting you're saying that the voice was going up, because my voice did go up and then it went back down again, and so it moved from the small range that I had when my voice first transitioned, both up and down, and the voice kind of expands into its place rather than moving, in my experience.
It does. It expands, yeah. What's your range at the moment, Cormac?
Depends on the day, to be honest.
You are right. It does depend on the day. Is that your experience?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Some days I'll be comfortably hitting tenor Gs, and then on other days I'll be really happy with a tenor D. Yeah. It just depends on the day, in all honesty. But yeah, my voice expanded a lot. Now on a really good day where I'm warmed up, I have about 2 octaves, which is very useful if you're being ragged around by a choir master, you know.
Yeah, the voice does expand again, and it quite often is at its lowest soon after it's changed. It will sink right down, and then it'll find its level, and it start to creep up again.
Yeah, I certainly had notes when my voice first changed that I no longer have. I do remember how I used to talk. It was just around when I was 15, my voice was in the gutter, my speaking voice.
What, low?
Yeah, very low.
Yeah. Yeah. Repertoire. Do you think you will ever sing an opera song?
No.
You have, Max. You recorded an opera song when you came to see me last.
I did, yes. Opera's wide. There's a lot of different kinds of opera. The one that does annoy me is musical theatre. People who ask me to sing something from Wicked or something. That's just never going to happen for me, personally. Each to their own, but I think I'd rather die.
Have you ever sung music theatre, Robbie?
Yes, I have sung musical
Oh,
theatre.
God, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. No, it's all right. I quite like singing a very wide range of repertoire. I think Max is very right. Operas are such a massive category because it is quite interesting whether Cormac, you like singing art songs or whether it's just opera that you don't like singing.
Well, I've sung a big variety of different songs. I've done like very well-known pop songs in my own kind of way, and I've done like really well-known classical songs, and I've gone from the Bis Du bei Mir's and Ave Marias to Titanium and Snow Patrol songs. I think in the future I'd want to try and stay more towards like the light pop stuff, like ballads and stuff like that, because I really do enjoy singing that, and I think it does suit my voice, but I definitely don't want to completely ditch the classical stuff. I think I would quite enjoy doing that at school, and I know for my GCSE music I'm going to be doing my performance is going to be singing a classical song. So yeah, I guess we'll just have to see what kind of comes though, and yeah.
I think a lot of really good kind of popular pop artists are classically trained.
Yeah, they are.
Because a lot of the skills that are required, things like looking after your voice, which people who don't sing don't think about at all.
Yeah.
You learn those skills through being classically trained,
yeah.
and then you can apply them to any kind of music that you want to do.
To talk about country roads, Cormac.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking you to talk about that because I'm a fan.
Good.
I really like your recording of country roads.
Thank you very
Seriously,
much,
I did go talk to us about that.
It was the choice came because I was going to Nashville. I've already been to Nashville, but the choice came about because Nashville, Tennessee, is the home of country music, and we thought that it would be quite a good idea to do that. And just in case, we might have been able to get a little sing-song at a bar in Nashville. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to get that though because she needed to be of age to go into the bars.
It's difficult not to enjoy John Denver though.
Yeah.
I
Robbie.
think, yeah, when I was listening to that track, it sounded so comfortable, which was which is really important at this stage. I mean, even I now, I mean, the things that sound good are the things that I'm really comfortable singing, and that where my voice is, and I think it's right. That piece was absolutely perfect for your voice. It just was so. It was just so right.
But choosing repertoire for the voice is really important.
It's so difficult. It's so difficult. Firstly, you have to have an understanding of what your voice actually is and is like, which I know a good few singers who don't know what their voice is actually like, and so they'll just end up singing either something that someone that they like has sung, or something from a book of songs that says songs to sing if you're a tenor, or songs to sing if you're a baritone, and they end up doing a good rendition of something that doesn't suit them at all. Whereas if you spend more time looking for repertoire, understanding repertoire, you can really bring the best out of your voice, as well as looking after your voice as well. I think I've really only started making my own repertoire choices recently, mostly because up until the point where we stopped recording as much after the album, and then I kind of grew away from music and singing a bit, and so I would come and do some recordings with you every now and again. But I wasn't singing for a purpose. I wasn't doing any auditions, any performances, anything like that. But ever since, and then obviously COVID happened, so wasn't doing any singing for 2 years at all. No choirs, no nothing, no solo performances, not even rehearsing. So now that I'm getting back into singing again, having to pick my own repertoire out for auditions and such has made me really understand how difficult it is. You can't just be given a piece of paper and told, sing that, this suits you. I'd have to go through, for example, an audition I did recently. I went through, I think, 6 or 7 audition pieces and learnt them before I found one that I actually wanted to do and suited my voice.
When did you start choosing repertoire, Cormac?
After the Decca stuff, because before that I wasn't really, actually smart enough to know what was right for me. I just kind of went off the advice of my singing teachers and off the advice of what Decca wanted me to do. But I think after that, when we started doing the recordings with Dominic, then was when I started to choose my own repertoire. Yeah.
When did you start choosing repertoire?
Yeah, I think it was definitely when I started doing more classical singing. But even then, a lot of the stuff that I've done has been quite, you get very much told what you need to do. I did Handel's Messiah recently, and you literally just do the tenor arias, and which is a bit unfortunate because I think the vocal repertoire is so massive that you shouldn't need to bend your voice to the repertoire that you want to sing. I think with choral music though in particular, because you don't really, I don't really spend any time learning a choral piece. I don't spend hours and hours practicing Stanford in A. It's sort of go and rehearse it for 10-20 minutes and then go and sing it. It doesn't really get kind of considered in the same. I don't consider it in the same light as I would consider choosing repertoire for a recital. Which I think that it must have been only in the last couple of years that I've really started choosing what I'm going to sing. I would say I'm quite lucky. My singing teacher has been very useful and is very good at choosing repertoire that suits my voice, and all of the repertoire that has been chosen for me I've thoroughly enjoyed singing, and I think that's a hallmark of a very good singing teacher.
It's interesting what you were saying before about bending your voice to what a choir wants you to sing. Because recently I sung the Monteverdi's Vespers, and some of those pieces have 10 parts. And so that you basically pick out a part that suits your voice and you sing it. But obviously that was from, I believe, 1604. And back then they had a very different conception of what a voice part was, didn't they, Martin?
They did, and they sang it different. They had a different conception of what pitch was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remind people who Dominic is, because
He's a very good friend, but he also happens to play the piano on my tracks and produces them and helps us out a lot with musical stuff and recording. Yeah.
Well, there's a partnership there, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. He's a very, very good pianist. I think one thing that is really special is that he becomes one with the piano, and you can definitely see that when you watch him playing. I think especially in the Empty Chairs and Empty Tables video, you can really see the amount of passion that he puts in to playing his instrument and also connecting to me singing, and the partnership between the piano and the voice when Dominic plays for me is very, very spectacular, and never had a pianist that is so connected to me before. So yeah.
Out of interest, Cormac, did you feel that connection you're talking about with him, did you feel that instantly, or is that something you had to work on?
I most imagine it was instantly, to be fair.
Tell us more. When do you think you started developing as an artist as opposed to just being a little boy?
I think roundabout when I started to work with Dominic, I'd say. So when I started to kind of get my own, like, way of doing the music. Yeah, I think that's when I started to develop my emotional maturity as well. Like, it's
Now,
crazy.
was that your emotion, or was that you doing what Dominic said, do this and you'll sound emotional?
I think it was, instead of sounding emotional, I think it's looking as if playing the part as well and really acting it. And I don't think it was to do with Dominic. So I think it was all off my own account, because I've always been told that I put a lot of emotion into when I'm singing. So yeah.
Do you connect with that, Robbie? When did you start pushing yourself into your singing as opposed to just being a boy chorister who does as he's told?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I feel like maybe when I was starting to, move up the ranks in the choir a bit. Therefore, it was no longer about when you got a solo in the choir, learning it and then, being terrified and just singing it. It was more of a case of enjoying it and trying to, put a little bit of yourself into that solo. And even if it's just a small, verse in the canticles on a, raining Tuesday night, you can, practicing putting, a little bit of yourself into a solo. I think that's when I really started. So maybe it was when I was about 11 was, I think, when there was more, as people above me in the choir started to leave, and I was moving up in seniority, and I think I was, I'm not saying that was when I was the kind of finished article, and I'm not sure. I don't think I am the finished article yet of, truly putting my emotion into my singing, because I think that's potentially one of the things that is the hardest to develop, because your voice will eventually find its place and be where it's at, but that finding a connection with the music is sort of the real cherry on the top that really distinguishes the best singers.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons we're doing this podcast, I think, is, Cormac, you're quite keen to help other younger boys over the voice change. Tell us.
Yeah, I feel like that with people, especially boys, it's when they sing around the age of 13, 12, 11, is the elephant in the room, as my mum and Max and I talk about in the car, is the voice changing. And it's like you say, I think it was definitely the case for us before we met you, as someone said, oh, your kid's career is going to get hit by a train when they hit puberty. And it was always that worry. And it was just like, oh no, it'll be fine when my voice changes. And I think lots of people who are around that age, I think the worry is my voice going to sound good when it changes? And I think that not enough boys our age are educated about it and informed about what is going to happen, and is their voice going to be okay, and what are the right and wrong things to be doing during that period where their voice is changing. So I think that is definitely important that the message gets out there for boys around my age, yeah.
Well, you're certainly right that, I mean, from the research point of view, boys complain that they're not taught about what's going to happen to them.
Yeah,
that
and
voice change is not explained to them, even in quite good choirs.
Yeah.
What was said to you, Robbie, in choir about how were the older boys counselled about what was going to happen to them?
Well, I feel like until it happens to me, it was very much an unknown and undiscovered territory for me, especially since as the people whose voices changed sort of were, either they left at the end of the summer, by kind of obligation, at the end of year 8,
that's it.
You leave.
You're out.
And so, it never really... And once people left the choir, you didn't really stay in touch, especially, because there is a noticeable age difference, even more noticeable than an 18 and a 20-year-old, between a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old. And so while, the older choristers were super supportive while you were, learning the ropes of the choir, once they left, that was them gone, and you didn't really see them afterwards, and so you didn't know what they were going through, so you therefore had no idea what was going to happen to you. Luckily for me, I mean, I really think that I'm really happy that I got the opportunity that there was a choir within the cathedral for me to go into, and they had someone, one of the lay clerks took a day out of their week to come, and an evening out of their week to come and do some, rudimentary vocal coaching and rudimentary explaining of what, was going to happen and what was happening. But really, it was very important for me, and I feel very privileged to have been, afforded that explanation and,
Well, let's talk about this word. I said we wouldn't mention the B word. I'm going to confront it head on. Voice break.
In the next episode, we will pick this conversation up again. Thank you so much for listening, and for those who watched it on my YouTube channel, thank you so much for all of your lovely comments. We really do appreciate it.